Match take 2 in the UEFA Champions League, and I'm going to go through the 8 fixtures that were played in groups A, B, C and D on Tuesday. So, start with Group A then. Real Madrid, they're trying to recover from that defeat in Paris on match day 1. They were at home to Bruges and things didn't go very well at all. They were 2 down in the first half. They turned things around in the second half, managed to get a late equaliser, but still not really on the form that they ought to be. Final score in the Bernabeu was Real Madrid 2, Bruges 2. The other match was Galatasaray at home to PSG, Paris Saint-Germain. PSG still without Neymar, suspended, still without Cavani. And Mbappe was on the bench. They struggled. Although they dominated the match, they just couldn't get their act together up front. But they did manage to scrape a goal and went away from Istanbul with a 1-0 win. So that group stands with PSG on 6 points, Bruges on 2, and Real Madrid and Galatasaray on 1. To Group B, and this saw the best match of the night. It was at White Hart Lane, Spurs entertaining Bayern Munich, and what a match this was. It was a catalogue of goals. Spurs got off to a good start, went 1 up from Son, but then Kimmich equalised for Bayern, and shortly after Lewandowski put them ahead. They went 3-1 up, courtesy of Gnabry, and Kane managed to get a penalty, but by that stage they were 4 behind. Sorry, they were 4-1 behind. And it got worse, and by the time we got to the final whistle, Gnabry had helped himself to 4 goals, and the German champions had won by 7 goals to 2. I'll repeat that, 7 goals to 2. A real embarrassment for Spurs, really in front of their home faithful. The other match, Red Star against Olympiacos. The Greeks started well and went ahead, but then unfortunately their captain got a second yellow and off he went, and that turned the match because Red Star recovered from a dreadful start really to take the match by 3 goals to 1. So that leaves Bayern on top predictably with 2 wins, 6 points. Red Star have got a win, 3 points. Olympiacos and Spurs are just on 1. To Group C then, and Manchester City were at home to Zagreb. They struggled really. It took them a long time to get the scoreboard moving. Eventually Sterling, who came on in the second half, grabbed a goal, and they got a very late goal by Foden which made it 2-0. The Croatians did very well really, but anyway, Man City another win by 2 goals to 0. The other match was played in Milan, Atalanta home to Shakhtar, and Atalanta opened the scoring, but they succumbed to a very late goal, and Shakhtar took all the points by 2 goals to 1. What that means in the standings is that City have got 6 points, Shakhtar have got 3, and the Atalanta I think have got no, they haven't got any at all. Okay, into 4, Group 4, and this was Juventus's group. They were at home to Leverkusen. They'd started with a fairly tight 2-2 in Madrid against Atletico. They were far too good for Leverkusen, although they really weren't firing on all cylinders. Comfortably won by 3 goals to 0. Ronaldo, whose shooting boots weren't at the ground, eventually got a goal towards the end. The other match was in Moscow, Lokomotiv at home to Atletico. Atletico, comfortable win by 2-0. So how does that leave the standings? Well, it leaves Juventus and Atletico on 4 points, and the other two teams on 1 point. Okay, the next matches will be reviewed tomorrow. Matches from E, F, G and H, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what happens in Barcelona versus Inter Milan. Okay, that's your lot from the matches in the Champions League match day 2. It's match day 2 in the UEFA Champions League, and this is my roundup of matches played on Wednesday night. I've had a good look at all the 8 fixtures, and I'm going to give you a rundown of the results, where it leaves the teams in the tables, and any other football news that might come into my little brain. So let's start with Group E then. This was Liverpool's group. Liverpool played at home to Salzburg from Austria. Contrasting fortunes on the first match day. Liverpool, of course, lost in Napoli. Salzburg won comfortably at home. Well, it got off to a great start. Liverpool actually went 3 up, and it looked like a walk in the park. However, Salzburg had different ideas, and miraculously they pulled it back to 3-3. And Liverpool certainly managed to just steady the ship, but at one point it looked rather nervous, and they converted the 4th and then hung on for what proved to be a very, very difficult win. In the other match, Napoli completely in charge of this one, but couldn't get the ball over the line, and it ended up 0-0 against Genk. How does that leave the standings? Well, Napoli played 2, got 4 points. Liverpool and Salzburg have got 1 win, 1 loss, 3 points, and Genk on 1. Now to Group F. Group F was the group that included the big clash between Barcelona and Inter Milan. Sanchez up front for Inter, no Lukaku. And Inter looked pretty good in the first half, and they took the lead. Second half, though, Barcelona came roaring back, and 2 absolutely brilliant goals from Luis Suarez, one set up by Messi, meant that they nicked it 2-1. In Prague, Slavia, who looked pretty good in the first match day in Italy, they were playing Dortmund, and Dortmund, remember, got a 0-0 with Barcelona, but should have won it. Well, they didn't disappoint this time round. They won the match by 2-0. It was much more difficult than that scoreline, but it leaves Group F with Barcelona and Dortmund on 4 points, Inter and Slavia on 1 point. To Group G then, Leipzig were at home to Lyon, and 2 defensive blunders allowed Lyon to win this one by 2-0. The other match was at St. Petersburg, Zenit against Benfica, and Zenit were far too strong. They won the game by 3-1. I think that leaves Lyon and Zenit on 4. I'm not quite sure. Let me just quickly check that, can I? Lyon and Zenit drew the first game 1-1, so they're now on 4. And Leipzig are on 3, and Benfica haven't got any points at all. So that about sums that one up. Last group then, Chelsea's group. They were away in France at Lille, and eventually they came out on top, winning it by 2-1, courtesy of a Willian winner. In Valencia, Ajax were far too strong for Valencia, and they won comfortably by 3-0. That meant that Ajax are on top with 6 points.